And welcome back to this week's edition of Conservative Arkansas Media. My name is Paul Harrell. Thank you so much for being with us. We really do appreciate it. I want to start this program at the top of the show, and I want to just say a word about the devastating tornadoes that have ripped through our state, the Little Rock metro area, as well as the great folks of Cross County, Arkansas, specifically Wynne, Arkansas. And I know others have been affected as well. I know lives have been lost. I know also that lives have been completely turned upside down, and it is not something that didn't affect me. I actually have a family member who is okay but lives in Wynne, and his house was essentially a total loss. And I've actually been over there a couple of days this week. Everybody is rallying together. I actually have even some footage of just the complete and total destruction that went on. This is footage from Wynne, Arkansas. Now, I mean, the response to these tragedies, the National Guard called in, the amount of people coming together to clear all of the disaster. A lot of this is very dangerous just to even be there in the aftermath. The lumber, the nails sticking out of the wood, like an obstacle course just to get in some of these houses. You see the trees just absolutely just topped, just ripped off. And again, this was from Wynne, Arkansas, and the devastation here was just an entire strip just taken out of the town, including the town's Methodist church, as well as the school, Wynne High School. The turf ripped off the football field. Matter of fact, some people were even finding state championship signs from the scoreboard that had flown, very long way. These were the views. These are sobering views. It's a miracle that there were not more people who were hurt and killed. But I would just ask for your thoughts and your prayers during this time for all of the families who are affected by these terrible storms, these terrible tornadoes in the state of Arkansas. Again, the footage speaks for itself. Me personally, as I've seen a lot of footage like that, as being somebody who is in media, is a journalist, and does this, but I have never actually been on the ground in the aftermath. I was there less than 24 hours after the event happened, and I've never seen such devastation. Those photos, the stuff that you see, and anybody who's actually been a survivor, I'm sure you do know. I haven't. Never had a tornado, do something like this in my immediate vicinity. And so the amount of destruction there was just unbelievable. The pictures, the video, I'm sure doesn't do it justice. But anyway, our thoughts and our prayers are with our statesmen, our fellow statesmen who are putting their lives back together and even grieving the loss of loved ones. And so I wanted to start the program with that right there. And we need to pray that God can heal like he can do what we think is impossible, and actually bring peace during these tumultuous times. We're going to start today. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders went on the Faulkner Focus with Harris Faulkner over at Fox News. A couple of things I'm going to point out in these clips, one of which is the fact that the B-roll that is used here is absolutely propaganda. But first of all, why did Sarah Huckabee Sanders go on this Fox News hit? Well, Fox News was covering a recent bill in Indiana where they have, quote, banned gender-affirming care. Now, right there, and I'll just even show you, we'll just show you this right there. I mean, that lower third, I'll get rid of my lower third. That lower third right there, Indiana bans gender-affirming care for minors. Gender-affirming care. I don't know. Can I say this? We'll see. We'll test it. Gender affirming care is not a thing. What they mean by gender affirming care is, of course, drugs, chemically castrate your kids, or actual surgeries. That's considered gender affirming care. Kind of like abortion is considered health care. Well, what is really abortion? What we're talking about? Well, we're ending a human life. Yeah. Okay, so that right there, we have lost so many battles in this country because we adopted the language of the left. When we adopt the language, in many ways, we've already lost the battle. Now, that's not necessarily true here because so many, as I have said on this program many, many times, so many Christian red states are now pushing back and they're passing laws that protect children. And this is a very, very good thing. And what has the left done? Well, according to reports, the biological female trans terrorist who went into the Nashville Christian Presbyterian School and murdered 6 people, including kids. The reports were, and of course the FBI is probably going to hold on to the manifesto. We may never see it, but the reports are that they were upset by the banning of the transgender, let's just say banning transgender values in the state. Because I think that's the umbrella you could put a lot of this legislation under. You could put it under the umbrella of banning their lifestyle, whether it's we think we have the right for kids to come to drag shows, we think we have the right for these books to be given to minors. We think that the doctors should be able to, perform these surgeries and never have to answer for it once the person becomes an adult and realizes what they've done to their bodies. These life-altering, forever decisions. So yeah, you could put them all under that umbrella. Anyway, Sarah Huckabee Sanders goes on Fox News, and I'm going to play a little bit of the clip for you. Let's go.
Reporters were asking the White House about it yesterday.
I'm wondering what the president's reaction is to the Indiana governor signing that bill into law, and does the president have a position on at what age these kinds of therapies and surgeries are appropriate?
That's something for a child and their parents to decide. It's not something that we believe should be decided by legislators, so I'll leave it there.
In Arkansas, lawmakers passed a new bill which would require parents' approval for teachers to use trans students' preferred pronouns.
Bravo. I love how we're talking about Indiana, then we're going to talk about Arkansas, and we've essentially, in my opinion, taken it up a notch. By the way, we've already passed, outlawing chemical castration of kids, and bottom surgeries. See what I did there? Bottom surgeries. I'm adopting their language, right? Genital mutilation surgeries. That's what it is. If I can even say that in this country, who knows?
Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Republican governor of Arkansas. Governor, this is an issue that is popping up in your state as well. Tell me the journey there and what you think of Indiana now getting added to the list.
Anytime as government officials we have the ability to enact.
All right, I got to set this up. I'm gonna get back. I want you to watch the B-roll. For those of you who don't know, in the news business, B-roll is the videos that they're going to try to keep your attention. That's why they do it. They're going to show you a bunch of pictures, video right beside Sarah Huckabee Sanders while she's speaking. I want you to pay attention to what they're showing you. Okay? Combine the lower third, gender-affirming care, propaganda. I'm telling you, this is propaganda from Fox News. I'm just telling you, this is propaganda from Fox News. You can already tell they've accepted a whole lot of phony presuppositions. Watch the B-roll and listen to Governor Sanders.
Things that protect kids and empower parents. Those are things that we have to look for and try to enforce on the state level. We certainly cannot expect anything meaningful in this space to come out of Washington, and it's why I think you're seeing so many Republican governors step up and pass legislation that does exactly that.
All right, so first you've got words like inclusive and words like gender neutral. Okay, that's the first part. It's going to get a little bit more overt here in just a moment. Okay, back to this interview. Thanks for bearing with me. We're going to break this down here.
Protects kids. It bans some of these permanent life-altering surgeries and makes sure that we're putting the focus on our children and empowering parents to make the best decisions possible.
Well, and what you just said, as I've talked with medical professionals, is so critical. We actually don't have a lot of data on what...
Now, you see that right there? Protect kids, protect trans rights, not protect children from making life-altering decisions. No, while Harris and Sarah are having this conversation, the B-roll is sympathetic towards the LGBTQ enclave and the trans enclave, promoting this idea, showing the people who are protesting, but not showing the millions and millions of outraged parents that the left has now decided to come for our kids in a myriad of different ways. It's the little things. It's not a question of what to indoctrinate. It's a question of, it's not a question of whether or not to indoctrinate, but what to indoctrinate.
It's reversible and what's not. And it could very well be permanent a decision that an 11-year-old, for example, would make in some states. And permanence at 11 is very different. It's the idea of where you are. We're both moms. We know that.
I have 3 kids, Harris, and most days they can't decide what they want for breakfast. We go through 10 different versions of what we're going to dress up for Halloween. The idea that they are capable at that age of making some of those life-altering permanent decisions, they're just not prepared and ready to make that. And it's our job to do things that help protect kids, empower parents, and that's exactly what we're doing here in Arkansas and what you're seeing take place across the country.
Well, and look, if parents were invited to the table, that'd be one thing. But in many of these Democrat-led districts and cities where they think it's a good idea for the teacher or other authorities to make the decision with the child without the parents knowing, they shouldn't be doing that about anything. I mean, we should be constantly being communicated with.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. The parents have to be involved, and not just involved, but they have to be the decision maker. That's their responsibility. That's their role. And trying to cut parents out of the process is simply unacceptable and not something I think that we can allow to happen.
The latest Fox News poll shows education is a key issue heading into 2020.
All right, so the rest of this interview is good. You should check it out up at foxnews.com. Governor Sanders goes in to talk about the LEARNS Act and the success, school choice, and things like that. And she even comments on the tornadoes that have torn through our state as well last week. But you have to be aware of those things. A lot of you probably maybe just are passive news observers. Most people are, and you probably have never actually looked. Not just you may agree with what Sarah, and I would venture to say most people who were watching that Fox News interview were agreeing with what Governor Sanders was saying. But then look at the B-roll they're rolling next to her, and you can see, even on Fox News, you have a clear bias. Now, specifically with these life-altering decisions, one of the things that I have brought up many times on, I know I've brought it up on this program before and some of the other shows that I do, has to do with the fact that not only is the, let's say the trans agenda on kids a huge problem and we need to protect them, but it's also a way to essentially depopulate our population, because this stuff is not reversible. And if it is in some instances, maybe with limited hormones for a little while or something like that, not, if you do it from essentially, elementary school on, it is irreversible. But what you're talking about is people, you're talking about young girls and young boys who are making decisions that essentially mean they are giving up ever having the possibility of procreating on their own. They are literally giving up the possibility of being a mother or a father themselves. And what that means is we will have fewer and fewer children. I know for decades now, the left in this country and those intellectuals that, claim to be on the right but are really secretly working for the left, they are obsessed with this idea of getting you convinced that there are too many people on this planet. That is actually a very debatable point, and many people actually think we don't have enough, and that we are now, even specifically in China and the rest of the world, are on a population decline right now, where we actually are going to have very difficult time maintaining any sort of global trade status with each other, because we're just simply not going to have enough people to fulfill the requirements to keep something like that going. But anyway, I digress. That's something that we can save for another day. But I will say this, and I don't know what this is going to do, so I don't in terms of the censors that are out there on the interwebs, but I do want to show something. I saw this post the other day on a website that may or may not be acceptable. Well, it's a direct competitor to Facebook. So I saw a post the other day by the CEO of a competitor to Facebook called Gab. And this is what it said. Red states must make it unbearable for liberals to live there. Pass legislation they hate, promote values they hate, shun and shame things they like, give them no other choice but to leave to some blue state hellhole. Now, I do not believe that that is necessarily the intent of Arkansas legislators when I think they generally want to pass good legislation that protects our kids. And we've talked so much about it over the last few weeks. The Arkansas legislature, as of the recording here, is still in session. They are debating right now whether or not to extend the session. There's still a lot of stuff going on. It's very fluid. It's also very difficult right now to get in touch with legislators because they are so darn busy. But anyway, the point of that post, though, is not lost in terms of the cause of this. If we are using what little ounce of federalism we have left in this thing we call a constitutional republic, and the several states across the country are now going to their state legislators and they're passing laws that the corporate fascists in government do not like, laws that are going against what you see promoted in the commercials on network television, if anybody even watches that anymore, going against the advertisements that you see on YouTube, going against the new Bud Light can. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? These laws are doing a couple of things. They may make people turn violent, as we have seen, and we need to be prepared for that, and that's why we have the Second Amendment. But they also may do exactly what that post says and may get people who just don't agree to also exercise that last little bit of federalism we have left in this constitutional republic that is quickly becoming a communist nation, and maybe people will go where they feel those laws are respecting their LGBT-isms. It's something to think about. Certainly is something to think about, and it needs to be considered. And that may not be the intent, but it certainly may be the practical effect. And I, for one, think the post is awesome, but maybe that's just me. Here we go. The Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Let's see here. We've got a few headlines from them reporting on the Arkansas legislative session. We have, real quick, the tax. Let's talk about tax. So we have I guess they're sending the tax cut package to the governor's desk. Bill cutting Arkansas's top individual income tax rate, top corporate income tax rate on its way to Sanders. I was reading a few publications about this week, and some people were saying, well, wish we could have done more on taxes. And I do too. Everybody does. The economy is where it is right now, and it's tanking. The U.S. dollar is tanking over time. I don't know what it's doing today, but it's been tanking. You've got new financial alliances being made globally. You've got people abandoning the dollar. You've got the second largest economy in our hemisphere. Brazil is now saying they're going to settle up with Chinese dollars or Chinese yen. They're not going to be using. They're not going to be using our currency anymore. This is happening all across the globe, and so I think lawmakers are probably a little bit worried. Now, we can look at spending, and we can look at the amount of money that the Arkansas government's getting, and it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's something that's got to be done about it in the future. But as of right now, I think there's just not the appetite for just massively, completely getting rid of the income tax, which would be amazing. Individuals pay a top income tax rate of 4.7%. Corporations would go down to 5.1%. Okay, so going from 4.9 to 4.7 would be individuals, and the state's top corporate income tax rate would be going from 5.3 to 5.1. It would be retroactive to January 1st of 2023. Also, they've got prisons. Now, this is what they've been working on a lot, and they're working feverishly on it. This is Arkansas House Committee. This is Will Langhorne saying that the Arkansas House Committee passed an amended parole overhaul bill. Now, this bill would do essentially, I think, what a lot of us, when we talked to Senator Ben Gilmore on this program a couple of weeks ago or several weeks ago at this point, I did not know that there was this 1/6 rule And essentially, most Arkansas inmates are only serving 1/6 of their sentence, which really just calls into question, why do we even have sentencing guidelines at all? Why do we even have these, sentencing things on the books when our criminal justice system is essentially just going to let people out early anyway? Why not just sentence them to what they're actually going to serve? Wouldn't that be more transparent? Well, this new bill, and the reason they're doing this is because we've got prison, we don't have enough prison beds. We're going to have to build more prisons, going to have to do something, and we're getting more and more violent. Now, one of the reasons, real quick, people are going to ask, well, Paul, why do we have to build more prisons? Or, excuse me, that's not Senator Brian King. That was from last week. Why do we have to build more prisons? Why do we have to do all this? Well, because we're becoming an increasingly immoral populace. And the more immoral that we get, the more people pass laws to try to govern it, and then the more immoral people are, the easier it is for them to go around those laws, and so then more government, and then you get around the laws, and more government and get around the laws. And unfortunately, and I used to say this a lot, that we have the technology, we're going to have the technology really soon to enslave ourselves. Well, it's here now. I mean, we have that with the central bank digital currency that's coming, going to be able to monitor us, police us. So you're hanging out with the wrong person. You're hanging out with a person that was on the website the government doesn't approve of. You said something on social media 5 years ago, and now you're hanging out with a person that said that 5 years ago. Well, your money's not good in this store. Or you can't have bacon today because bacon, you're going to have the bug meat or the fake meat or the Bill Gates meat or whatever. We are there, folks. We are there. And a lot of it's, some of that's not necessarily because of an immoral population. It's just because of a completely out of control, I don't know. But anyway, to my point, we have more and more people that are doing terrible things and are a threat to those of us who want to live peaceably, specifically here in the state of Arkansas. Like, get rid of the globalism, get rid of the, just take the federal government out of it for a second. Let's just talk about what we can do here as a state. And so instead of this 1/6 rule, instead of saying you're going to serve 1/6 of your term, we have the number 85%, I believe, that's being talked about. The bill's sponsor, State Representative Jimmy Gazaway, thanked members of the panel for their consideration of the measure. Quote, "This is an extremely important bill, one that carries significant consequences for the people of the state of Arkansas and will carry those consequences for years to come. It will improve the state of criminal justice in Arkansas and truly hold accountable the people who we are afraid of," he says. Under the bill, people convicted of 18 of the most violent felonies in the state code, including rape and capital murder, would have to serve the entirety of their sentences in prison. So the entirety for those big crimes, those terrible, the entirety of their sentence. People convicted of 53 lesser violent felonies, such as second-degree murder, battery in the first degree, or sexual indecency with a child, would have to serve 85% of their sentence before being eligible for release with supervision. So they're really making an effort here to rein in crime. And the Democrats, unfortunately, are out there saying, and you're going to hear this, get ready. I mean, who knows? You probably have a liberal on Facebook that's already saying it. Well, there's no evidence to suggest that putting people in prison decreases crime. Well, that is ridiculous. Like, there's no evidence to suggest that putting people in prison for longer periods of time decreases crime. No, that's ridiculous because, let's be honest, prison doesn't necessarily do a great job of reforming people, right? I mean, are we really going to say that once you go to prison, you've got all these people that get out of prison and all of a sudden learned their lesson? Oh, yeah, we've learned our lesson and we're not going to do crime anymore. No, there's a lot of repeat offenders. And so it is logically a very easy thing to get your head wrapped around. If you have a violent criminal who is in prison for longer periods of time and not out on the streets, you're going to have less violence than you otherwise would have. It's very logical. And anybody that's raised kids, this is like a cause and effect. Anybody that has kids, this would be cause and effect. Just from a disciplinarian standpoint, this is very simple to understand. But the left, I don't know, they want to, for whatever reason, when they get, even the left in Arkansas, for whatever reason, they start to rationalize and start to make excuses. And I mean, they're not for discipline. They're not for discipline. you know. Anyway, it's just one of those things. It is one of those things that we have to cope with. Okay, so real quick, so we're going to watch the prisons. We're going to watch some of these other bills. Everything is very fluid right now. There's some pieces of legislation that have failed that I wanted to pass. We'll talk about that probably at a later date. But to reinforce my point at the beginning of the show, where we talked about this what's going on at the state level, all of these Christian red states, as I'm calling them, Christian red states, are passing all of these bills that are protecting our kids. Here is another version of that. So this is a website called the KansasReflector.com, and as you can see here, we have, let's see if we can't zoom in that for just a little bit. All right, so here is a website where over in Kansas, they've done a student-athlete ban. They're trying to protect women's sports, okay? All right, so that T-shirt there says protect trans youth, kind of like the B-roll that we saw with Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Transgender girls are now blocked from playing in women's sports. This is in Kansas, so we're not talking about Arkansas. We're talking about just regular old minus Arkansas. And they overrode their governor's veto. So this is, I wanted to throw this out there. We could be in a situation where we have a Democrat governor who's not signing any of this stuff, like we used to have. like we used to have. By the way, yes, Asa Hutchinson is running for president. We didn't talk about it here because, we're talking about it now. I didn't make it it's not like Governor Asa Hutchinson, former Governor Hutchinson, has a chance of even sniffing the White House. I think we all know that. It's more about having chess pieces on the board for, Walmart corporations, maybe companies from the Shandong province or Shandong province. I don't even know. Anyway, back to this story. It sort of breaks my heart, Kelly said. It certainly is disappointed. This is the governor about the override of the veto. But you had some leftists in the audience melting down. Following the House vote, you had a state rep, Susan Ruiz, a Shawnee Democrat from Kansas, stood up and addressed some of the Republican lawmakers who voted for the ban, yet telling them they were, quote, full of excrement. You guys get the picture. So anyway, there was a meltdown there, and anyway, it's happening all over, happening everywhere, folks, everywhere, all across the state, all across the country. This is happening, so it is a very, very good thing. We're going to give you as much information as we can from the Arkansas legislature as it comes to us right now. Again, just like last week, everything is very fluid. I know they are trying to get things finished. I still don't know if they are going to continue the session or, recess until they come back to what's called a sine die. I don't know. I'm going to find out, though. And make sure you're following Cam Media here on Facebook as well as our YouTube channel, and we'll certainly get all that to you. In the meantime, it's Good Friday. I want to wish all of you a Good Friday and a happy Resurrection Sunday, because that's really what this is all about, right? I mean, this is why we are doing what we're doing, right? Because we know that there is a higher power. We know that Jesus is real, that he was a man. He was God in flesh, God incarnate. He died for our sins. He rose from the dead, defeating the ultimate physical barrier of this place, saying that it's the fact those that repent and believe in Jesus Christ are made pure before a holy God. And so I want to just tell everybody out there, happy Resurrection Sunday, happy Good Friday, although that's a very ironic name for a day, considering that the wrath of God was poured out on Christ, and the Scriptures tells us that God was pleased to crush him. So, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have eternal life. This is Conservative Arkansas Media. Thank you so much for watching. and we'll see you next week.